What does it take to create a vibrant, thriving life? First, the sad news is that Thoreau was right. Most people are leading quiet lives of desperation, lacking in meaning, fulfillment, and vitality. But we choose more. We choose to create extraordinary lives. And the Art of Vibrant Living show entertains you with inspiration, empowerment, and education to create your life into a masterpiece. It's time. Let's vibe up. Aloha, y'all. Daniel Aaron with you. I'm the host, and this is the Art of Vibrant Living show. I'm so happy that you are here. I'm so happy that you are interested in vibrant living. And the show, as you might guess, is all about entertaining, yes, inspiring, yes, and most importantly, empowering you to live your most amazing life. So here's a request, a recommendation: be entertained, be inspired, and do something about it. As in, we've got an amazing show today. You are going to so be amazed at what my guest has to share. I'll tell you about her in a moment. And it's going to be valuable. It's going to be a lot more valuable, though, if you say, yeah, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to put this into place in my life. Act on some of what you learned today. And by the way, if you don't feel like you are living your most vibrant, thriving life yet, when would be a good now time to do so, to get on the path to it? I'd love to connect with you. So feel free to send me a direct message or email me, daniel@danielaaron.com, and let's have a conversation and create some new possibilities for you. Y'all, my guest today, Anandra George, is a truly amazing woman. She is let me say it in this way, simply a sound expert. But that doesn't do it justice. She's lived in ashrams in India for years at a time. She's had personal invitations at some of India's most revered spiritual leaders to sing and teach in their ashrams. She's taught Sanskrit pronunciation and mantra meditation, and hopefully she'll correct mine in a moment, with great transformational success to thousands of students from every continent, every major religion, and every major language family. I could go on. I'm going to tell you the one last thing about her, and then I'd rather you hear more from her and less from me. She developed something really amazing, the world's first 200-hour registered yoga teacher training course focused entirely on the transformational power of sound. The transformational power of sound. That's worth repeating. Anandra, thank you so much for being here. There's so much I want to ask you about and hear from you. I really appreciate you're with us. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. It's really an honor. Happy to share whatever I've got. It's all yours.
Well, thank you. And I repeated that last phrase, the transformational power of sound, in part because my life and my work is all about transformation, and I love sound, and I use it in many, many ways as part of my work with clients, my work with myself, and you have experience and knowledge in so many different aspects of sound that I've just dipped my toes into a tiny bit. So I'm excited to immerse in that. And it's like, to me, well, literally sound is hidden in it, right? We don't see it, yet it's always there and so powerful. Okay, I need to stop talking. Lower my excitement level for a moment. So before we get into, some of the how it works and how to benefit from it, would you tell us a little bit about how you got to it, how it became such an important thing for you?
Yeah. It saved my life. Pure and simple. I don't want to tell too much of my sad story of how challenging it was to live in a family with alcoholism and mental illness and divorce and a fair amount of chaos. There was good stuff there too, for sure. But there was a lot of fear and trauma and instability for me when I was growing up. And I leaned in somehow. I don't know how I got the idea, but I just would hum to myself. And I found safety inside by learning how to self-regulate my nervous system with sound. And then when I first got introduced to the possibility of playing music, when I was, in the fourth grade band tryout, they just got us in a room together and we got to play to pick up whatever instrument we wanted and try to play whatever instrument we wanted. And I blew my breath through the silver flute. And it was the first moment of coherence and lightness and hope and fullness and spirit. It was an indescribable moment that made me feel like the sound body that was moving through me was bigger than myself. And it lifted me up in such a profound and visceral way that I knew that I would love sound and I would love music forever. And then, life kept going on, and I ended up going back to what I consider the most extensive training in sound, the mystical transformative power of sound. So I went to India to study Sanskrit, mantra, and Indian classical music. And we went on from there. So that's and then you caught us up to speed with my bio to this point. So
well, cool. Okay, so and doubly interesting for me, because when you described the little bit of your childhood, I would, me too. I had check by check there with that, and I don't know if it was any time before this moment that I actually consciously realized how much playing in band for me as a little boy and all through school, how much that was soothing to my nervous system. I never made that connection before. It really was something powerful for me. So thanks for making that linkage for me. Will you take us a little bit deeper into going to India and the mystical side of it? Because
sure.
I don't know. We've got a varied audience, and I certainly have personally. I've got a lot of experience with kirtan, and I hung around a lot of the dasas, Ram Das, Surya Das, all these different das dudes who talk about their experience with their gurus and singing kirtan. But I think there's still a lot of people that's a world it's a very foreign world. So what was that like for you? Can you give us more of a feeling of it?
Yeah, I would say that, there's kind of two broad approaches to the direction of sound and the intention behind sound. And what we mostly know in America, in the West, is sound for performance, like sound to express oneself as a songwriter or a musician, or play a piece that someone else wrote and to, perform for an audience. And that's how most of us experience sound. And if we experience it in a transformative way, it's because we resonate with someone else's expression. Like we have a favorite song that hits our heartstrings in a certain way, in a certain moment, and we have our associations and memories with that. So there's a resonance principle there that is healing. Most people, I think, could count their peak moments in life, their moments of spiritual connection, joy, and include music as a key factor in that. So there's a lot of transformative potential for sound in that way. But the other direction is sound that is intentionally exploring the dimensions within, where the sound is directed at your listening to what is alive in you as a meditation practice, as a self-discovery, self-awareness practice that is intended specifically, directly, personally for self-growth and transformation. And the yogic teachings of sound are, to me, it's like the longest lineage, the longest history, the longest continuous metaphysical scientific exploration by experts. And what, like one of my yogasana teachers says, psychonaut, like not an astronaut, but a psychonaut, someone who is exploring the psyche. And so once I experienced that different directional power of sound when I was first in India, I was like, whoa, first of all, this is home. This integrity, this resonance, this depth of direct personal contact with the heart of the sound inside of me. That's it. I knew that was just totally changed. It changed direction for me. And so I would say that a lot of people don't realize how much more there is in the power of sound. Like, they love music, they love chanting, maybe they love kirtan even, or whatever, but maybe they love the Grateful Dead, or they love the church music or whatever, but there's still this kind of externally oriented direction to the sound. And the way that I approach it is turning that around and then going within. And there are worlds within worlds within worlds within worlds, and deep unpacking of layers and unwinding of traumas and beautiful revelations along the way. And it's worth knowing that that's an option.
Wow. Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah. And that's a great distinction. That, yeah, it's true. What most people think of as sound, or the common experience, at least in the West, and I think mostly in the East too, is it's somebody is performing, or the radio is playing, or we choose, and it's this coming to me, it's coming into me, and I resonate with those sounds, or those meanings, or the vibration, or what it triggers in me, right? If it's a memory or an association or a feeling. So it's like, as the recipient, and then what you're describing as an alternative, which is less known, is, or maybe not an alternative, a additional component, additional option, is the generating of sound from within and the experience that comes with that. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. Yeah. It's worth noting that even today in India, mantra and classical music is often performative. So just because you're hearing a Sanskrit mantra or you're hearing a raga does not mean that it is interoceptive. Does not mean that that inner journey into the sound is what's happening for the person that you're hearing, or that's what's happening in a group dynamic. So I think it's really important to distinguish that, because, just like with yogasana as well, yogasana, the yoga shapes and postures has gotten exported to the West. And, even in India, there are yoga championships, competitions of who can make the shape the best way. And, then there's then there's the other approach to yoga, which is that yoga as a practice is about learning how to turn your awareness in and be with a tension point as you stretch your physical body and move with your breath to maintain a central alignment even in difficult situations. So very different approach and very different outcomes depending on the direction of your attention, really.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So there's many, you opened up so many questions. Oh, it's exciting. So,
the more you know, the more you don't know.
Yeah. And the more excited I am to learn. So let me ask it this way then. This kind of like skips ahead and goes down a different road. How, and then this is probably an impossible and silly question, but let's just see what
those are my favorite kinds.
Right. So how does one, what's the most interesting, powerful, effective way of using sound or being with sound for transformation specifically?
Well, it has to be listening. The first step at changing the direction of your relationship with sound is to cultivate listening. So turn your ear and your inner attention into listening to what is actually alive in you. And you can go through different stages or layers of listening. Like you can listen to the body. You can listen to what the discomfort in your body is telling you. You can listen to your breath and what jaggedness or tightness in the breath is telling you. You can listen to the mind and what painful looping thoughts are telling you. You can listen to, your sense of identity and who you think you are, and the discomfort and misguided beliefs about who you think you are. And you can listen to, at the essence, your sense of communion with life. Like, are you holding yourself as separate from the pulse of life that animates everything? Or are you, living as and through that? So like I've just gone through if you recognize the terminology, the Panchamaya Kosha, the 5 sheaths of being from the yogic philosophy, and you would just begin to turn, instead of studying them and studying through the different layers of your being from an intellectual point of view, you would turn your listening to listen to be curious and aware of what is actually going on in this moment, in whichever of your bodies, is presenting itself most loudly to you in that given time. Or you can go through the five stages of that. Yeah, most people, it's easy to connect with the body and the breath. Maybe the mind, the other 2 layers are maybe a bit more obtuse unless you're a long-term meditator. But yeah.
Well, so let me interject for a moment, because you used the phrasing a moment ago. You might notice which one of those layers is most voluminous. You said, which is loudest, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so you brought a sound element to it. And I may have misunderstood that part of the way I heard you describing it in the listening could be also described as just pay attention to or feel into or notice or sense.
Yeah.
Right. So sense these different components of yourself, or these ways that you interact with the world. And it, to me, it doesn't seem like that process necessarily has a sound component to it. Am I missing something though, or are you coming toward that more?
Well, sacred sound is alive with listening. There is no sacred sound unless there is connection to spacious awareness of listening. And so, there, like, you have to have that sense of presence and awareness and self-connection to the wonder and the curiosity, to your deep listening state. So you asked me what's the way to get started, or what's like the most powerful thing. And I would say that cultivating listening is something that anyone can do, whether or not you're using your voice to chant or sing or tone or hum. You can do that no matter where you are and no matter who you're with. If that is fully within your empowerment at any time. And then the next thing I would say is beginning to become aware of where your voice is coming from. So, and using sound, using audible sound to trace from silence to full expression and back to silence, which is like using sound, using those different levels of volume to explore the different capacities of speech. So, maybe this is, I hope this isn't getting too complicated, for the audience here, but most of us have some discrepancies between our heart of hearts and the thoughts that we run and loop, and then between our thoughts and the words that we speak, between the words that we speak and the actions that we take. So I can't think of anyone, including myself, who is in perfect attunement between heart, mind, word, and deed. I'm constantly like reassessing that and kind of trying to correct and tune myself. And I think using sound at the different levels to literally trace the distance between silence and full expression. So, exploring a mantra practice, or exploring even just a humming to ah kind of vocal practice, where you're feeling what it feels like in your to be in integrity with those 4 layers: heart, mind, word, and deed, or heart, mind, word, and embodiment. And to me, that's the beginning of a nāda yoga practice. It's the daily attunement, and it's the end result. But then I would say there is no end result, because we're alive and things accumulate, and we constantly need tuning. It's like, you don't take one breath and go, okay, I'm good. Your body needs to keep breathing. And so I think for me, like, attunement to a musical way of being, in attunement with life and with myself and with others is something it's a dance. It's not a destination.
100%. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Looking at the continual tuning of thought and word and action and embodiment, and the ongoing curious practice and reverence. Like, I one of the things I do, this is one way that I relate to what you said, is when I say something, almost immediately now, it's like a reverb in my head then says, was that accurate? Did I say that in a way that was true to what I think and feel? Right. And there's a lot of power in that listening. And so you said the beginning of, no, you didn't say it this way. You said sacred sound always involves that kind of listening. So that brings me to the question more of, what sacred sound is something, it's like, that's a phrase that gets thrown a lot these days. Like sacred geometry, sacred sound. What makes sacred sound? How do we define it?
Well, I think everybody probably has their own definition. Because my relationship with sound is that sound is my pathway to wholeness. Sound is my coherence with God, with the divine. Like, it's communion for me. And I know that it's not that for everybody. And I know that, maybe people want that, or they don't know how to get it. They don't know how to experience that consistently yet. But that's what, like, sound equals love equals God. Those are they're synonymous to me. And I say God, I know you're a minister, and so you're okay with those God terms. But if I was speaking with an atheist, I would say life or nature or, the power that generates keeps the lights on in the universe. I don't know. I mean, there have a lot of different ways to say it. I'm using that word for you with you. But so it's a high bar for me. What is sacred sound? And it's easier to define what is not in that sense. Like, what is not is when I think and feel one thing and I do another. Or I intend, this was like prior to me learning Sanskrit, the Sanskrit alphabet, when I would chant a mantra, not knowing that it was not accurate. And maybe I had an intention, so there was some sacredness in my yearning and my desire, but my embodiment did not match the feeling. And so there was like a jaggedness or a discord there. And, that would be aspirational sacred sound by my current, definition. But when the intention, the communion through like the intention and the attunement through thought and sound and the, embodied audible, sound creation matches at all of those levels, to me, that is sacred sound. Heart, mind, word, and deed are in attunement. So it's a high bar. I admit it, But I would rather spend my life, pursuing something that can never be mastered than, settle for, lack of integrity somewhere along the line. But in that, I also, I think, again, I say it's a dance. It's not it's in that I give myself a lot of grace and hugs and like, okay, we're a work in progress, Anandra, doing our best. Right.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. When I was a little boy, there was a magnet on the refrigerator in my family home that said, shoot for the moon. That way, if you miss, you'll be among the stars. So I'm a big fan of setting the bar high, as especially as you said, if we don't punish ourselves for not being at the top all the time. So Oh, goody, goody. There's so many wonderful things to speak about. You used the word a little while ago, mantra, right?
Mantra.
And this is another one that I think gets bandied about in
Mm.
ways that could be confusing for people. And so part of what I'm feeling like is I want to ask you really basic questions because you've got such a depth of knowledge and experience. I suspect you will bring to lay people a nuance that we might not get in other places. So if that's okay, what is mantra? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it is a word that has gotten appropriated for different usage. And I think, if you say like, I can do it, that's an affirmation. Or I'm good enough. I'm okay just as I am. That kind of thing. That's an affirmation, which when you repeat it has a mantric sort of effect in that it helps to protect you from your negative thinking or a different, another self-sabotage belief or behavior. So, but the uniqueness of the Sanskrit mantra is like nothing else.
Hmm.
And so mantra means to set free or protect from your ordinary mind. And they're snippets, sonic formulas that have unique vibratory effect because the Sanskrit alphabet is a sound-based language, not a meaning-based language. In Sanskrit, the sensation that you feel when you're accurately producing the sound is the meaning.
Hmm.
So it's this archetypal, primal sound formula that vibrates a certain pattern in your body mind complex while you're doing the repetition that entrains you to a state of being. So saying I can do it or I'm good enough has associations with representational meaning in language, and that's really helpful at one bandwidth. But the bandwidth that mantra covers is it's a very different spectrum. It's a much larger spectrum. So I prefer to use the word mantra to refer to the Sanskrit mantra and the psychological sound-based pharmacy that is available to us in the world of mantra therapy, and so because it deserves it deserves to keep that term to embrace what it is on its own. Does that answer your question?
Well, that's great. I don't think there is any one answer. This to me is just so fun and interesting because it's an exploration, and there's I feel like we're on a field with 40 different rabbit holes, and
Oh yeah,
and,
at least.
yeah, it's awesome. So and that's one of the you brought up one of the really interesting things that is often said about Sanskrit, right? Is that it's a unique language, and I remember hearing, you can tell me if this is accurate, that it's the only language, and as I say that, I think, that can't be, it's not the only one. But anyway, that it's the only language where the sound and the meaning are inextricably connected, right? And we have in English, say, and other languages too, there are some words that where the sound and the meaning is linked, and there are others where it's not. Though there's something powerful and unique about a language that is sound meaning connected. And I'll say more, but let me pause there. Am I on track with what I'm recollecting and what I heard?
Yeah, I think that matches. I can't say, I'm not a global linguistics expert to be able to say whether it's the only language either,
Yeah.
but it is definitely, from what I know of the Sanskrit alphabet and the structured order of progression through the sounds, that each is a, there is a, well, samskritam, the actual word for Sanskrit in Sanskrit is samskritam, and it means literally to put together the subtle form.
Mm.
So it is, yeah, I'll leave that. That's kind of, to me, that's like a mic drop moment. Samskritam means to put together the subtle form. So it is a creative capacity.
Okay, cool. Really cool. So the way I hear that is put together the subtle form that is from metaphysical to physical, from energy or imagination, from ethereal into the 3D world. Is that how what is that what it means as you say that?
That's how I experience it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So
in the sense that, like in English, you can say, rabbit, 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 but you could do that for 100 years and you're not going to be a rabbit. You're not going to become a rabbit, because rabbit means a fluffy thing with the ears and little nose, and you're not going to imbibe the essence of rabbit and be a vehicle for rabbit. But if you say Shiva, 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 after a short period of time, relatively, you're going to experience a sense of lightness and spaciousness and an awareness that pervades space, and even your sense of body is going to be opened up to the meaning of that, is the spacious awareness and bliss that precedes and comes after life. So the potency of there's a lot more to the science of mantra. There's different classifications of mantra, and there's so much there that I won't get into here. But the essence is that, like, it has a different capacity.
Beautiful. Okay. All right. I with your permission, I'm going to bring a couple pieces into our conversation that are a little bit personal to the work I do with myself and my clients. And because I have a feeling that through the lens of your knowledge and experience, we will discover some new things here.
Fun.
Right. And first, though, I remember when I was living in Indonesia, hearing from an Indonesian friend. I was studying the language there, which you may know has some of its roots straight from Sanskrit.
Were you in Bali?
I was in Bali. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And specifically,
Balinese Hinduism is a very interesting expression.
It's fascinating. Yeah. And for me as a longtime yogi, when I moved there, it was like familiar and disorienting, because Balinese Hinduism, is much like Hinduism, has a lot in common with India. The language has some of its roots in Sanskrit. Sure. In any case, one of the things an Indonesian friend of mine that was helping me with language said is, somehow we were talking about yoga and I used the word mantra, and he said, "Oh, in Indonesian that means magic."
And
I was like, I was just so excited by that, right? Because it gave this
like black magic or good magic.
He didn't distinguish, actually, and in that moment I didn't ask. And yeah, black magic is a real thing there, though. I think a lot of the difference between black magic and white magic, say, is the intention, right? So the tools could be the same. Is it a scalpel or is it a knife? It depends on the usage, right?
Totally.
But
Yep.
do you resonate with that in terms of mantra and magic having a connection?
It's interesting that you say that, because I mean, in a way, if magic means to make the impossible possible, or to kind of conjure a reality that you don't see yet, or that you want, that you wish for, I would say yes. There is a potentiality for that, and therefore there is a potentiality for it to be misused.
Mm.
So I'm always really careful about that with myself, that I want, if I'm sharing the sharp tools of, especially the Sanskrit sounds and the production of the Sanskrit sounds, that will attune a person to the specific vibratory and nervous system, aliveness that's possible, that they're doing it for them, that they're doing it for self-transformation and not to get a certain result.
Mm.
So I always make that distinction with what I'm doing. But it's interesting that you say that, because when I first, I first went to India in 97, and then I went back in 2009, to really dive deeper into my studies. And when I first did that, I told people that I was that I was really interested in mantra, and that I was teaching mantra workshops, and I wanted to go deeper. And they would look at me like cognitive dissonance, because for a lot of people in India today, mantra is like a slick snake oil salesman, kind of like black magic, tantric mantra, kind of thing. And so I got a lot of really, really weird looks from people who just had only that association.
Interesting.
Yeah, and my music teacher was like, she looks okay. She seems fine. She doesn't seem like one of those greasy street peddler of, I'm going to teach you how to, castrate your enemies or whatever. I'm serious. There's some really, really weird stuff. You see billboards and advertisements and newspapers, and it's weird. I mean, for me, it's like, okay, maybe there's a niche there, but I don't want to have any part of that. But it is, it's like giving, powerful. It's such a powerful tool. It's really important to me to have that attunement and to be using it for self-growth, and to make ourselves and to make the world more coherent, more cohesive, more connected, rather than to get my way and get what I want. What I want, I don't want stuff or outcomes.
I'm with you. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. So you also said a couple moments ago, you used the word being, right? And used, what was it? You said creative, right? And there is and when we were speaking about Sanskritam, right, that there's something inherently creative about that language. And one of the things that is inherent in my work, again with self and with others, is the knowledge, the awareness that we are always creating. Right, that's inescapable part of being human. We're always creating. That the universe is continuing to expand, and what we say has creation to it, right? And even funny, I wasn't thinking of this a moment ago when I asked you about mantra and magic. The word abracadabra, right, from Arabic, right?
Mm.
Has this meaning that is through speaking I create, and most of us associate abracadabra or abracadabra, whatever pronunciation one uses for it, with a magician, right? Abracadabra, and I pull a rabbit. Oh wait, we're back to the rabbit. Pull a rabbit out of the hat, right?
It's funny, I'd never talk about rabbits, but here we are.
But so, and just like, and you were speaking about the creative aspect of language and creating not what we want, and one of the things I'm always paying attention to for myself and with others is when people are speaking exactly what they don't want, right? Which is one of the problems with complaint. And lest I go too far afield in my excitement here, I'll pause and say, will you say more about the relationship between sound and being and creation, if that makes sense to you?
Yeah. I'll talk about it from the differentiation between which part of your being you're talking from. There's more to it than just this, but we're often in a dynamic between our brain stem, which is the same part of our brain that we share with dinosaurs and reptiles, and pretty good, great survival ability, right? Honorable bow down to the survival skills, and quick to pick up on threat and to even see threat sometimes when threat isn't objectively there, and to be in fight, flight, freeze, numb, defend, collapse, right? And versus the frontal lobe, which is the part of us that has the ability to be curious, to be creative, to see solutions, to see nuance, to see both and rather than either or, to see the spectrum of possibilities that is not just dividing black and white. And so we have the ability to create from which aspect of our being are we creating from. And I think what you said about complaining, accusing, judging, is probably coming from that one part of us, whereas expressing, sharing with a sense of listening and curiosity, where the desire is for connection and resolution, not for domination. That is a really important distinction for me, because yes, you are, our primary act of creation as a human being is with our words. We say what we say has impact, and it creates the life that we live. So where are we, which part of us is doing the creating at any given time? And I hear that you are, you're helping people tap into their greatest potential, which is, by default going to be from the part of our evolution that makes us human, that makes us have the ability to see the big picture and find out how we can contribute to the whole. Right?
Yeah.
And not like, okay, where's my little, how do I protect this, my personal interest alone, at the cost of others.
Yes, beautiful. Well said. So I'll repeat something back or echo something back and see if we're on the same page, and then I'll ask you the next layer of my curiosity here. Part of the way I would speak, I do speak about what you just said, is we've all got the human animal part, the primitive part, the reptilian, and then we've all got this spirit part, and we have access to both. And so part of what I work on and work with clients on is say, okay, let's create from this spirit part, and let's from that part get really in touch with, and we could talk for an hour about how to do this, really get in touch with who is our supreme self, like our highest self, our highest potential, and what are the words that come from that, and what are the words that create that, right? And this is okay. You were going to say something. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think, for me, it's about coherence. Like, there isn't, I think I used to judge myself more for the part, how I would behave when I didn't feel safe. And now I look at that more as, okay, this is a natural adaptation to something that I'm perceiving as a threat. And so I embrace that. And yet I do want to lead with and training myself to the higher, and for me, you're asking like, well, how do we connect that, or how do we, what's my take on that? I think having a sound-based practice where I'm using the principle of mantra, of melody, harmony, rhythm, where I'm using like the toolkit of sound to practice coherence. And we know, that music, playing music, doing music, not listening passively, but doing music as one of the most or only things that brings all of us on board. And so a sound-based practice is a way for people who are not professional musicians, but can think a mantra, sing a mantra, do it do it repetitively. Like there's all these musical elements that you can engage, even if you don't have an inclination to want to perform or sing for others. Like you can do it for yourself, for that sense of coherence and integrity. And I think, it smooths, it creates those neural pathways. It keeps them myelinated, it keeps the pattern, it builds pattern, it reshapes pattern into what you want. And I think that the habit of that, creating a habit of that is essential. Like, I don't know how anybody could skip over the daily action of practicing being in coherence, especially when you're trying to get from one state of being into a different way of living. Like you and I have had to overcome trauma from childhood in order to live a thriving life. I didn't know what that felt like.
Right.
And I needed to figure out, okay, I know it's possible, but what am I going to do to get myself there? And the mantra and sound has been my pathway.
That's beautiful. Okay.
I hope I didn't take it too far off on the tangent.
No, it's great. I love what you're saying. My only lamentation is that the clock is ticking. So I will ask you this. I'm sure there are many in our audience, live and by rebroadcast, who say, "Oh, I want to know more. I want to go further." So, what's the best way for people to be in touch with you, find you, explore with you?
Yay. Well, heartofsound.in for India and directed in. Heartofsound.in, my website, I have a YouTube channel. I'm pretty active on Instagram these days as well. So you can find me any of those ways. And I have, over the years, I've developed a dozen free gifts, ebooks and mini trainings and mantras for peace, 108-day courses. Like we've just such a wealth of totally free opportunities to kind of get clued in to maybe a bit more nuanced training in this field, and open up some of these windows. So that's just, that's always available. That would be the way to get started.
And the way to access that is to go to heartofsound.in.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. Any of my social channels.
Yep. Cool. And for y'all that are listening and not seeing, Heart of Sound, just like you would think. Perfect. All right. Well, that, sadly, Anandra, brings us to my final question for you. And I feel like all these questions are so big, and we've gone only a couple 3 feet deep into what could be, going to the core of the earth here. So this question is even worse on that level because it's so big. It's so big, it's impossible, especially given the depth of your knowledge and experience. However, impossible things. Yeah, exactly. Well, and the great thing about impossible things is since they're impossible, you can't mess them up. So the big question is this: given all of your experience and knowledge, if you had one thing only to share, if you were to distill it all down to one thing to say to our audience in order to help them live their most vibrant, thriving life, what's that one thing?
Speak from your heart.
Beautiful.
And don't be afraid, don't be afraid to do that.
Speak from your heart and don't be afraid. Is that what you said?
Yeah, don't be afraid to speak from your heart and to ask, and to learn how to say what you need. Like, I think one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest things that I see over and over again in relationships and personal, like our personal disconnect, and that I've experienced in my life, is not knowing how to ask for what I need, and to keep things inside that are actually disconcerting or troubling me, and to have the courage and faith in the connections with life, that it's like, that it's okay to speak when I'm connected to my heart. As long as I'm connected to my heart, and it's whatever comes out is going to ripple out in a good way. So
hallelujah. Beautifully said. Thank you. I love it. Speak from your heart. Well, and you have spoken from your heart with us today. Super grateful to have this chance to speak with you, to learn from you, to, get a deeper understanding of just this amazing world of sound and sacred sound. So thank you so much for being with us, Anandra.
It was so fun. I really enjoyed it, and I can just tell that you have a tremendous amount of wisdom and inspiration to share with people, and I'm really glad that you're doing what you're doing.
Oh, very kind. I appreciate that. All right, and for y'all, our audience, you are the heroes of the story. Thank you so much for being with us, for being interested in creating and living your most vibrant, thriving life, please know that you doing that is not only not selfish, it's a gift to the world. It changes the world, right? You are entraining the world to higher possibilities. Again, I encourage you to be inspired by what Anandra shared, and even better, be empowered. Do something with it, play with it, explore, put it into action in your life. And y'all, thank you again for being here. We will be back soon for another show into the art of vibrant living, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Aloha. Mahalo for tuning in to the Art of Vibrant Living show, y'all. I'm Daniel Aaron, and may you live with great vibrancy